Recording. Um, any problems with the video from yesterday? I know it was fuzzy at the beginning, and I have no idea why, but it seemed to get better. Okay. Jay won't be here. She had to call into work. And Steve is always late, so we'll go ahead and get started. So, what? How many of you guys were able to? How many people have GitHub accounts? Awesome. All right. I sent around installing Postgres. Anybody? It is a little bit of a witchy download, but anybody have any problems with it? Hard to say. Hard to say. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And we're going to work through that probably starting next week. The reason I wanted you guys to install Postgres is that we're going to start deploying our apps to Heroku probably next week. And to deploy to Heroku, we need a little bit more of a healthy database, a more robust database than SQLite. And Postgres is sort of the most commonly accepted program or database for Rails to start with. So we'll work through any installation problems you might have with it. I'll be totally honest with you. I'm not terribly familiar with Postgres, so I'll probably be working through it with you guys at the same time. Anyways, all that said, how many of you were able to kind of go through and continue to work on your websites, use some of the form tags, get comfortable with some of it? Any questions, any things we want to work through before we talk about today's lesson? No? Pretty straightforward stuff, I guess. Okay. Okay, so here's what we're going to do today, you guys. We are going to talk about Git and GitHub. We're finally kind of at that point. So today we're going to walk through what a repository is, why do you use source code management. We're going to do some drills, some practice. And then at the second half of the class, or somewhere thereabouts, we're going to do kind of a practice project together. I mentioned it yesterday, so we're going to break into teams and start working on, like, the next couple weeks, working on projects together. And what I want to do is create a program, create a website that actually creates teams. So we'll be able to load up all the students into a team and then randomly pick out the teams from the website. And so it'll be kind of a good, like, we're going to brand new project, brand new models, brand new associations, and do some kind of basic work on this together. So before we do that, any questions on today's lesson? Before we even have it. All right, cool. So how many of you before this class had heard of GitHub? Okay. How many of you had heard of Git? All right. Kind of, sort of. So Git is actually something that's called source code management. You might see it as SCM. And source code management at its sort of highest level is a way for developers to collaborate on code. So take this class, for instance, right? So you guys are a table, Steve, Mike, and I might be a table. And it's actually a pretty good representation of how a development team might be organized in real life. You know, you have 4 or 5 people, you might have a designer, you might have a developer, you might have a database person. And the catch is, how do all those people work on the same code base together without screwing each other's changes up? How do you do that seamlessly? How do you do that and make it really easy? Well, you do that through a tool called source code management. And there's a whole bunch out there. But one of the most popular ones, at least in modern programming, is GitHub, or it's Git, which GitHub hosts Git repositories. So we'll talk about the distinction there in a second. But there are a couple of others. Subversion is one. Microsoft Team Foundation is another. There's a whole bunch of them, and Mercurial is another one. But Git is the most popular in the open source community. You see it very popular with Rails developers, very popular with Node and JavaScript developers. And the reason it's so popular is that it makes it really easy to create public repositories, okay? And a public repository is another way of saying open source code. So what do I mean by open source code? How many people know what open source code means? Mm-hmm. It's free, right? So whomever built the program has decided, because they're really super awesome, to give it away for free. And before places like GitHub existed, there were places, and I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but public repositories, but that weren't nearly as collaborative, weren't nearly as pretty, weren't nearly as easy to use as GitHub to find open source code. So Git was actually built by the same guy who created Linux, this guy Linus Torvalds. So he built Git to make it easy for people working on the Linux kernel to actually collaborate on programming. Well, the Git was built, I guess it was maybe 7, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Well, Git needed a home. Somebody needed to host all the repositories. And you can have different, there are many different providers of Git repositories out there. How many of you have heard of Bitbucket? Bitbucket is another one. And a lot of people in programming classes like this use Bitbucket. I'm not crazy about Bitbucket only because GitHub is the most commonly used one in day-to-day world. Bitbucket lets you create an account and do up to a couple of free private repositories. GitHub only lets you do free for public repositories. But notice I just said public versus private repositories. What's a private repository? Bingo. So I'm logged in. I keep doing this. I'm logged in as myself here. I think I am. Yeah. I'm logged in as myself, and I think I've already showed you guys this, but these are all the repositories I'm currently working on, right? And the ones with the log next to it are private, meaning only myself and the people that I'm working on with can access it. And then the white ones are public, meaning anybody can access this. And this is actually not even my repository. So this is my business partner, Jared. This is his repository that he's created. So I am a collaborator on it, so therefore I can access it, I can pull down the code, I can do all that kind of stuff. So again, GitHub is just a great place to store and manage code. So if I come in here to TTS login, the nice thing is, and some of you have probably already noticed this, all the code is actually visible right here on the site. So I often will come in here and see, take a look at some code. And the really nice thing is all the history is in here, right? So let me show you what I mean by that. So you see my last commit, I last committed this 21 hours ago, meaning I last made a change to the repository 21 hours ago. And we're all familiar with this organization right here, right? So I can jump into a controller. And you can see the message, the last time I touched it, and the message I left on that commit. And I'll talk about commits and all that kind of stuff, and the importance of messaging with Git here in a minute. But I can actually jump in here and view the code, which is very handy, right? So if I wanted to come in here and look at the code and just copy it and paste it back into my thing, I totally could. I can also do this thing called blame, which is really nice. And because I'm the only author or contributor to this repository, it's only ever going to be me. But say Tammy and I were working on a project, right? And something was broken. And Tammy just knew I was the one who broke it, which will happen because I'm always breaking shit. You could come in here and see the exact line of code and say, well, this is broken. Who last changed this one line of code right here? And because I'm the only one, you don't see it, but you'd see TJ Muehlman change this on 2/14/2014. And you could go to TJ and say, hey, man, you broke the code. And I know it because GitHub's telling me you broke the code. Why did you break the code? That's the power of GitHub. It not only lets you see who changed the code, when they changed the code, why they changed the code, but you can actually even go all the way back and view history and say, well, this one only has one revision, but you'd see, actually, let me give you a better example. Hold that thought. History is my favorite thing. I'm going to take you into We & Co, which is now We & Co has over 3,000 edits. So we've changed and modified my company's code base 3,286 times. And there's 7 different people working on it. But I can go, and this is all PHP, so Don't laugh too hard at it. So I can come in here, and I can see. Just want to find one that's I know have changed a lot. And see the history. Users. There we go. Okay, so I can come in here to history, and I can go all the way back to all the different modifications to this particular code file. I can go back over a year. I can go back to the beginning of time and look at that exact chunk of code, what was changed, what was modified. And I've used this a bunch of times when I'm working on code right now that all of a sudden stops working and I don't know why. You guys have all encountered that, right? Like something stopped working, you're like, hell yeah. And what have I been telling you guys? Don't rebuild, right? And I'm going to keep telling you guys that. But now that we're going to start using Git, and if you use Git properly, you'll be able to roll back and roll back and roll back and make it easy and go look and say, oh, this is what the line of code is. I'm going to start using this. So that's really the power of GitHub. Okay. In terms of collaborators, the cool thing is, again, you can collaborate with people and invite people to join your source code repository. And that's what we're going to work on today. We're going to play around with creating an app, loading it in, working with a team, and inviting collaborators and that kind of stuff. Okay? So is everybody at least at a high level, without knowing all the ins and outs of Git and GitHub, do you understand Git and GitHub and why we use it? There are people still in the development world who don't use source code management. To give you an idea of how important it is, I'm working on a project, a totally unrelated project to anything we've talked about, where they have a third-party development team in Canada, and they don't even understand what source code management is, let alone what GitHub is, and I said, I'm not doing this project. I'm not doing it. If you don't even understand what GitHub is, that's like a deal breaker to me, you know? So that's how kind of like passionate I am about making sure people understand how source code management works and how to best utilize it.
Why wouldn't they utilize it, and how can you see what they're working on?
I mean, people bury their heads in the sand. I mean, if these guys, I've been developing for 15 years. I only the last couple of years started using Ruby on Rails, to give you a good example, because I buried my head in the sand and said, I'm not learning no damn new programming languages. Of course, I came to my senses and learned Rails, and here we are. But programmers are a stubborn lot. They don't want to change. And so they're probably using some archaic, if they're using a lot of people don't even use source code management. The first thing I do when I start a project, like a real project, is I create a repository and I load it in. That's the first thing I do. And a lot of people just don't do that. A lot of people don't think that way. And when you guys leave this class, you guys will not be those people, right? Okay, so let's start with the very beginning. We're going to create a brand new project here, and then we're going to interactively work through how we might use Git to create and manage it. So first and foremost, I want you guys, and this is going to be a dummy project, so we're going to probably end up dumping it here at some point. But I want you guys to go to GitHub and make sure you're all logged in, and I want you to create a new repository. See this big green button right here? So we're all creating a brand new repository in GitHub. And call it whatever you want. Call it TTS 219. Okay. Call it whatever you want. Yeah. Okay, and then give it a description. And we're going to make it public. I'm pretty sure I'm paying, so I can do private or public if you want to make yours public. Okay. And then create your repository. What is the what? Oh yeah. So there's going to be an option at the bottom that says initialize with a README. So a README document is sort of a base level document. It has a .md extension. I think that's Markdown. You can look up what Markdown is, but it's like a shorthand HTML or rich text. But basically, every project you have, you want to have a README. Because a README is sort of like the table of contents or the summary or the whatever you want to call it for your project. So if you invite a new collaborator into your project, most people, not all people, most people, the first thing they're going to look for is a README. And they're going to look at it and be like, oh, this is what this project's doing, or this is what this is doing. So make your README somewhat descriptive, somewhat obvious what your project is.
So it gives you the choice to set it up on the desktop, or that it has a default path.
Whoa. Where?
Not the README, the actual
Yeah, you're fine. We're not doing that. So just we're gonna get there here in just 2 seconds. So there's gonna be you're gonna see a lot of opportunity, like buttons that say clone in desktop. You're gonna see for Mac users, they're gonna encourage you to use a Mac. There's an app that is like a GUI for Git. I strongly discourage you from using that app because I've used it in the past, and I personally think it's a piece of junk. And then more importantly, Git from the command line, it's one of those fundamental things I think you should learn. So use terminal. And when you get handy with the terminal, and then after this class, you're more than welcome to use a GUI. But if you call me over like, TJ, my thing doesn't work, and I'm looking at a GUI, I'm going to say, do it from the terminal. So, okay. So, okay, here's where we're at. We have created a basic repository, but obviously there's no code in that repository. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a really quick app. Now, we're not going to use this app. We're not going to. So don't worry about when you name it. But I want you to create an app, a Rails app, and give it 1 or 2 scaffolds, and that's it. Don't worry about really anything else. And when you're done, take about 3 or 4 minutes to do that, and then we'll chat. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's what I was just saying. So now we need to create a project. Okay. Yeah. So create a project just with a couple of scaffolds. We're just going to use it to demonstrate Git. Okay, how many of you guys, everybody got a basic project? No, still working on it? Okay, take a couple more minutes. And for those of you who already have your project set up, go ahead and make sure it runs, make sure you can add some data, nothing fancy. Project? Sam?
Have to use sudo for everything.
It depends. So sometimes your terminal will cache the fact that you use sudo. I don't know how long. So you'll type it once and you won't need to type it for 10 minutes and you don't need to type it again.
Yeah.
So it's just a configuration. Steve, you good?
All of a sudden now all my commands have to use sudo.
Andrew, how you doing, man? Bluetooth treating you all right? How are we doing, guys? What's that? Yeah, and make sure you can boot it. Start the project and go create some data. Just make sure it works. Another fancy. Scott, how you doing over there? Good. I think. Remember, it doesn't need to be anything even remotely advanced. Just a basic working project. Because all we're going to do is use it to practice Git. How are you doing with that? You good? Mike? All right, guys, so here's what we're going to do. So now we're going to go ahead and walk through making sure that we've got a repository set up. We make sure we got a project set up. So I want everybody to go to GitHub, the homepage, and make sure they see their project on the right-hand side in this Your Repository section. You should see whatever you named your project probably towards the top. Anybody not see that towards the top? On GitHub homepage. Okay, cool. You're good. You got it, Oz? Okay, so you didn't create your repository. Oh, you're not a GitHub homepage. No, you're good. One step at a time. GitHub homepage. There's a lot. So I know you guys are getting antsy. I know everybody wants to be one step ahead. So pay attention to GitHub homepage. You see your repository on the right-hand side. Perfect. Awesome. Good job. Cool. So everybody sees it. So now we need to initialize our repository, okay? So we've created a repository, right? Now we need to initialize it. And the way you initialize it is there is a handy article right here on GitHub, and I'll shoot this around. But the very first thing we need to do is run this git init command inside of our repository. Again, I do this all the time. Make sure you're inside the new repository on your computer that you just created, and you're going to run simply git init. So I'll do that here. So I created a new repository. I created a new project called TTS 219 on my computer, right?
Does the name of your Rouse application have to be the same?
No. Great question. No, it doesn't. The name of so what will happen is, and this actually that's a great point. Most often than not, the name of the repository on GitHub is what I name it on my computer. More often than not, but that does not mean that's what it has to be named. When you clone, the problem is when you clone a repository down. I don't know if you noticed this when y'all cloned my repository. It called it TTS_login. There's a way to rename that when you clone it, and I can't remember the command, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb to have them the same name. But it definitely doesn't have to be. No. So now I'm inside my directory, right? So at this point, we have a repository. We have a really basic code base. Now we need to initialize Git, which basically tells my computer to start tracking changes. And that is as simple as typing git init. And you should see something like that, initialized empty Git repository. Well, an empty Git repository. The folder will be empty, which is a good point. So you should see something like that. And the way you can come in here and go inside your Rails directory, some of you probably have hidden folders that you're not seeing them, but just... No. All I want you guys to do is run git init. That's
in your app.
Inside your app. Which it should come back with this. Initialized empty Git repository, which I'm about to show you what that actually does. So, did anybody not get that? Initialized empty Git repository. What'd you get? Realign. Yeah, that's fine. It might say reinitialize. So if it says reinitialize, that's fine. So that just means it just restarted the Git on that folder. Git init, I-N-I-T. Okay. So anyway, so if I go into TTS 219, I will see if this is a hidden folder. In Mac, a hidden folder begins with a dot. Okay? What that basically means is don't mess with it. Okay? Don't mess with it. Don't touch it. But what happens is it actually creates this git init, which has a bunch of folders within it. So it's not an empty folder. It's an empty repository, which is subtly different. So this is where Git, that's running on my computer, actually stores all the stuff I'm doing, all the changes, all the revisions, all the updates. The thing that's very unique about Git over other source code management systems is that all of the code that you're working on is actually stored on your computer, which I know that sounds counterintuitive. You're like, yeah, no, duh. I've been working on it on my computer. Other source code management systems only pull down the files you're working on, right? And then they push up what you've changed. So don't worry about how that works. All you care about is the whole repository. If you're working on like someone else's repository, like TTS login, it pulls the whole shebang down to your computer, okay? And it stores all of that in this Git folder. It's inside your app. You won't see it if you haven't turned on hidden folders, show hidden folders. It's a hidden folder, and don't mess with it. If you want to totally screw up your Git repository, you will go in here and play with this, so don't do it. Okay, so there's another file in here, another hidden file called git ignore. There are often times that you will have files that you don't want to save to Git. An example of that might be like a configuration file, right? A database configuration file. Some sort of file that you want to be on your local machine, but you don't want to be in Git. That's where the git ignore file comes in. You can use this to say, you save everything in Git except for this file, or this folder, or these collection of files. Okay? And again, most often than not, and we're not going to use this for now, but most often than not, the git ignore is used to hide configuration files. Okay. So now we have initialized our directory. Okay, but we haven't actually added anything to it. We've initialized our repository, but we haven't added anything to it. So adding stuff to a Git repository is a very kind of elaborate process, I know. So you create a repository, you create a code base, you initialize the repository, then you add to your repository. So again, there's like 4 or 5 steps, and it's all very well documented on GitHub, and I'll shoot around the articles on how it all works. But so now that we've initialized our directory, we need to come in here, and we're going to skip this because we've already added the README. Already added it. Oh, it's okay. Commit. So, so we've initialized. So now we need to add our files. We need to add all the stuff that we've been working on. And so for us, the way to do that, and this command has recently changed, so don't do it just yet. Okay, git add space dot. So git add dot, and that dot is what we're telling Git is that we want to add everything, all of our files. Okay, so this is basically saying start track. Okay, we've initialized the repository, and now we want to start tracking the changes. We want to add all of our files in this folder to Git. Okay, and this is how you're going to start almost every single time you're creating a brand new repository. You're going to do the exact same steps. These steps aren't going to change. You did? What do they say?
File will have its original line endings in your working directory.
Oh, yeah.
That will be replaced on
Yeah, because you're on. Sorry, Windows users. You're on a Windows machine. GitHub stores everything as a Linux. So you're uploading Windows, and this is Jeopardy kind of trivia for you. Windows stores files with a different line ending than Linux Unix. So what happens is when you upload that to Git, Git's like, hey dude, I'm storing this as Linux, which means I'm going to subtly change the way the line endings go, which you'll never notice, so you probably don't care, which I don't know why they're throwing a warning. Hey, whatever. But that's what's going on. Anybody else? All the other Ubuntu and Mac users, we good? Okay. So now, I'm fond of a particular Git command called git status. Git status. Git status tells you where you are in terms of like committing, in terms of changing files. It kind of gives you an update on all of that. In this particular case, it's telling us that we have a whole bunch of new files, right? Git status, again, all it does is just kind of tell you, and you'll see why I use it a lot here in a minute. So we've added all of our files. Now we need to commit our files. So I know it seems sort of laborious, but in Git, whenever you're making changes, and adding a new file is making a change, the first thing you need to do when you're done with those changes, and we'll walk through some use cases here in a little bit, first thing you need to do is commit those changes. Okay, so we add a new file, so you add the files, so we've added them all. Now we need to commit, and that command is something like this. Git commit, and then there's a couple of switches you have to pass, -A and -M, which I can't for the life of me remember what those switches mean.
M is the message and A is all. I took the tutorial last night.
Sweet.
So you can leave a message behind.
That's awesome.
Quotes.
That's awesome.
It's what is it?
All of the files. I think it's
Yeah, that sounds right. There's a way to do granular commits, which I almost never do. But there's a way to say if you're making changes, you can change 10 files. If you wanted to just commit one of those files, you could do that and say.
The git add space dot. My understanding, that's where you add everything.
That's where you add new files that you've just added.
Right. So then it's up. So everything's ready. The whole project's ready at that point.
Not ready,
You're
no.
committing all
No.
files.
It's staged.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But I mean, I guess I'm just trying to. It'll come.
Yeah, so
I'm just
that-
wondering why you need to say all there when you said all previously.
Yeah, because if I don't, I think, and I could be wrong, if I don't pass the A, then it's gonna want to know which files I'm committing, and it might be optional if I don't pass the -A. It might just do all, which.
I've been doing it without that. That's the first
Oh,
one.
okay, cool. So I pass -A. I tend to be very kind of specific
What is the A for it?
for all. So do all the files.
And then the N is just.
What message you want to pass? Yeah. So real quick, and so again, just like programming, right? There's a million ways to do this. So I do git commit -A -M every time, all the time. But you can. Well, it sounds like you can leave out the -A and it'll just automatically do them all. What is not optional in my book, and I think it might be technically optional. What is not optional is to not pass a message. You always pass a message that's meaningful. So the first, for this one, because this commit is fairly straightforward, I'm going to do first commit, right? Change it, loading up the code base, whatever you want to call it. Okay? So now I can hit go, and the git add, you only do add when you're adding new files, right? If you never add new files to a project, you'll never run git add again. You'll never run it. You'll only ever run git commit. So add is what you do to add new files, or if you've removed files, you can run, it sounds weird, but you can run git add, and it'll scan for files that have been removed and remove them, or rename. But if you never add another file to this project again, you'll never run git add. You'll always run git commit, okay? So then git commit actually takes those files and commits them to my local repository. Okay, so this is a very important concept. I've committed my changes, but only to my repository that exists on my computer. This is what separates Git from all other source code management systems. At this stage, in Subversion and Windows Foundation Server and CVS, those three big ones, at this stage, my changes would have gone to the main repository. And if Andrew comes in and pulls that code, he would have seen the changes right now. But if Andrew's a collaborator on my repository at this stage, he doesn't see these changes. Only I see these changes. Because these changes are only relevant to me at this point because I've only done a commit. So, but at this stage, because all I'm doing is loading up my code base, I'm ready to actually push this code up to my repository and to the main repository. So to do that, you only do this once. So this is part of the initial setup process. So this git remote add origin, okay? So you'll do this once, again, when you're setting up your repository. And I always have to come back here and remind myself of the command because I don't set up new repositories that often. So, and don't do it just yet. So come over here. And now what I need to do is I need to get the URL for my repository. So I'll walk through all this here in just 2 seconds. And that's always right here, this URL right here. Okay, so coming back to my command window, and I'm going to walk through this in just 2 seconds. Okay. What we're doing is you're going to do git remote add origin. So now what we've done is we've created a local repository that's tracking changes, right? But we haven't hooked it up to GitHub yet, or Bitbucket, or another Git repository. So what we need to do now that we've initialized our repository, we've added our files, we've committed our files, we've got a fully functional local repository, our next step is to actually hook it up to GitHub so that we can invite others to play with our code. So git remote add origin, and then the URL for your repository. Does everybody got that?
Yes, but I'm not saying like, you showed us how you got the URL.
Yeah, if you're looking at the repository on the right-hand side.
On the bottom.
Uh-huh.
It's the URL with the dots.
Yeah, .git. So everybody got that? Cool. All right, let's go ahead and do it. And that was easy. No response back. What's that?
A little anticlimactic.
I know, right? Damn it. Okay. So now, what feels like step 25.
Actually, close my terminal. Do I have to redo all the other?
No. So that's a good question. Oz closed the terminal. No, you totally don't. It's always like it's actually doing stuff as you initialize your repository. You set up, you add your files. If you close your terminal, you can always come back. There's no worries. Okay, so now that we've hooked up to Git, there is but one last step. Does anybody have any wild guesses?
I think
So, TJ,
Yeah.
What does it mean when you say add origin?
What you're basically saying, what this command basically means is now we've got a repository sitting on our local computer, and we want to hook it up to GitHub. So that way it actually loads we're not going to load the code just yet with this command. But now we've established a connection between the two. That's what add origin means. Or git remote add origin. So the exact words, so
What is there is the origin.
no, what
There's
it, well,
something else when you go further. There's something about changing.
yeah, branching. We'll talk about branching here in a bit. Origin means your local code base. Like this is the origin. The origin is right here.
Add origin.
Yeah.
URL.
Yeah. It's always going to be this. Okay, so moving on. So, all right, so now, again, so we've created a repository in GitHub. We've initialized the repository on our computer. We've added our files. We've committed our files. We've told our local computer that this is going to be hooked up to GitHub. What is the last thing we need to do? Push. So that command is pretty straightforward. It is git push origin master. Let me explain what this means. So push, there's two main commands that you're going to be doing to interact with the GitHub repository. Okay, push and pull. And we're going to talk about pull here in a minute. But push is how you take all of your changes and send it up to GitHub. What command do I always have to run before, and ignoring what we're setting up a repository here in the real world, when we're like coding day in, day out, what is the command I have to always do before I push? Commit. Yeah, so we always have to commit. So remember, sending code to GitHub is a two-step process in the real world. It's committing to your local repository, which we just did a minute ago, and then it's pushing it up to GitHub. Okay, there's way to think about it is that there's two repositories, my repository and GitHub's repository.
If I could summarize that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the way I think of it is when you commit, you're taking a snapshot at that point in time of your project.
Yeah.
Freezing it right there.
Yeah.
Because I've messed around with this before, and if you make changes after committing before pushing, that throws it off because you.
Oh no, you totally can do that. No, we'll talk about that here in a minute. That's totally, and I do that all the time. So we'll talk about that here in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, so we're ready to send this code up to GitHub, right? So let's go ahead and do it. Uh-oh. Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry. I did this a little bit out of order from how I usually do it. You need to actually pull. So here's what we need to do. So we've set up a repository. This is only when you, what?
So it's crazy. It asks me for
Yeah.
a username.
Yeah, or is asking you for a username?
You
Well, if you ask me for a username, a Git username, you're going to use your GitHub account. So your GitHub username and your GitHub email address.
But mine.
So git pull. So actually do this. So git pull origin master. Okay. I'll explain what we're seeing here in a second.
You might ask for a username.
Yeah, if it asks you for a username, it's talking about your GitHub username and your GitHub password. Yeah, and we'll talk about how you can actually cache that. Yeah. So yeah, if it asks you for a username and it asks you for a password, type in your GitHub username and your GitHub password. Yeah.
I get like a error coding line.
Did you get remote add origin? Are you sure? Double check that you connected, because you can't if you're not properly connected to GitHub and you try to do a poll, you're gonna get a weird error.
Yeah, I got a poll, but it says one and no comment commits, and then merge made by the person who has to read me to or
Yep.
one file change for insertion.
Okay, so you're good. You're actually better. Yeah, you're good. Just sit tight though. All right, guys. So where is everybody at right now? Are many of you looking at this? You're good. Yeah, I haven't figured out. To be totally honest with you, it's like Sam and Todd and a couple others are like you're perfectly good right now. Don't do anything. Sit tight. Some of us, Nitty and myself, I get this every time I do a poll.
Did you do a pool or
We just did a poll. Origin. So what happened was we created a repository. We added, so that repository has a README file. So it's wanting us to pull that file down before we push our changes up.
Huh. I thought you said push.
I did. So what happened was,
They got an error.
yeah.
So now they're pulling down the README file. So then they can start.
Yeah.
But
We
yours
pushed.
went up and
Pushing in the same route.
they forgot how to
So hey guys, here we go. So since I'm recording this, let's pay attention because this is a really important stuff, guys. So let's pay attention. So sometimes you're going to get this screen right here, which is you're actually in a program called VI. Sorry, another thing to throw at you guys. Programming is all about getting random programs thrown at you all the time. So we're in a program called VI. And the quickest and easiest thing to do at this stage, what I always do is you hit :Q. :Q exits out of VI. So if you see this, so Nitty, let's go ahead and do this. If you're in this screen, :Q, and that exits out of VI. You don't really need to do anything at this stage. Okay? Yeah, so I get that. I don't know why I get that screen. So here's where we're at. We have now pulled the changes from GitHub down to my local computer, right? And we have, hey guys, so we pulled those changes down to my local computer, which happens to just be a README file. Remember we created a README? And Todd, I don't know if you know this, you nailed why we had to do this kind of on the head. With the way GitHub works, we have to make sure we have the latest changes on our local computer before we can push our changes up. I know it's stupid. I know it doesn't make any sense. It's just the way things are. Yeah.
Well, I was just exactly what you're saying, but I think some people did the README and some didn't. So those that didn't add the README, it was blank. So it works.
Oh, yeah.
Those that did add the README, it's a conflict.
Great point. It's not technically a conflict. But that's a good point. So what happened was, actually, I'm sorry. There is a README, so it was a conflict. You are right. I'm sorry. So what happens is, if there are changes on GitHub that we don't have on our local computer, which in this particular case happens to be a README, we have to pull before we can push. Okay? So I tried to push without first pulling. Okay? So, and we're going to do some drills here in a second where you're going to start seeing this. So you always want to do a pull before you do a push. Okay? And README, and GitHub is usually pretty good about telling you what you need to do. So, again, just like in code, just like in Ruby, just like in Rails, pay very close attention to the errors you get back. because I've seen this error literally 1,000 times, I don't even need to read it. I knew exactly what I did wrong. But you guys, since you've only done this now probably once, you need to read the error, understand the error, and follow the instructions that it usually lays out. So in this case, it says, hey, can't do a git pull. Okay, so we've done a pull. We now should be looking at a screen that looks somewhat like this, right? So now we can push. So let's do that. Let's try this again. So git push origin master. So let's try that. All right. So let me describe what I just did here. Git push means literally take all the changes we've committed to our local repository and send them to GitHub. So now they are in GitHub. Origin master means origin is the current code base we're looking at, and there's reason why that there's different ways to do this, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And we're pushing to what's called the master branch. Okay, so how many of you have heard of this concept called branching? Okay, so branching. So imagine we're working on code, right? So we're working on a pretty complicated code base. And I'm working on a feature that's due next week. But Scott's working on a feature that's due next month. We would employ something called branching to allow us to work on the same exact code base, but in parallel, so that our changes don't collide with each other. The exact use case being, I need something out next week, and he's working on something more long-term. And so he wants to be able to take a long time to code something that he knows is going to be broken for a good 2 or 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So it allows us to work in parallel on that same code base, exact same code, because there's multiple versions of that code going in parallel. Now, at the end, when Scott's done, we need to do something called merge. So we take that branch. Now we have 2 branches, one called master, which is the main code base. Some people call it the trunk. And then Scott's branch, which could be called, sweet-ass new feature. Whatever, you can call a branch whatever you want. So you're working on it in parallel, and when he's done, then you kill this branch and you bring it back into master. For the purposes of you guys, what we're doing in this class, we will never do branching because it is extremely complicated and it will make your brain melt. If you think the stuff we've been doing thus far is tricky, branching can be very, very overwhelming. So we're not going to do it. So, but that if you were working on a branch, you would do git push origin sweet ass new feature instead of master. But for our purposes, we'll always push to master. Okay? So, what's that? So I want everybody to go to GitHub. Let's go to GitHub. I'm looking at my project, which right now is empty, but if I refresh it, now it has a whole bunch of code in it. No? If you don't see code, let's talk about it at the break. Most everybody see code? Oz, make sure you did git push origin master and that you didn't get any errors back. Andrew, Tammy, you guys good? Okay. User error. Okay, but everybody else seems fairly okay. Cool. So you're still okay. If you're still having problems, since it's less than half, we're going to keep moving and we're going to talk about it at break. We'll get you guys squared away. Okay, here's where we're at. We've got now code in the code base. I can see when it was last committed, and I can come into settings, and I can see how many collaborators I have on this particular project, which happens to be, I have no collaborators. Okay, so here in just a minute, we're going to add a couple of you guys as collaborators, and we're going to walk through how we might work on this together. But let's go to our code and actually start making some changes. Okay, hold on 2 seconds, guys. Okay, so we got my code here. So the first thing I tend to do, what I'm going to do, I created a really basic project with a user and a task. Those are my two models. Okay? And I'm gonna walk you through exactly how I work with Git. This is how I do it. This is not necessarily the way all developers do it, but I think it's a good way, and I'd like you guys to think about doing it this way too. So now that we've set up our repository, we've got our code at GitHub, we're all good. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to kind of start setting up some basics, right? So I'm going to set up my associations, right? So a task belongs to a user, right? Save that. A user has many tasks. Okay? That's all I've done. I've set up some basic associations. This point, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to commit that change. Why am I committing the change now? I've only done two things. So I commit now because I want the ability to see when I make changes to my code base, not every change, but when I make substantive changes to my code base, I want to be able to go to that point in time and see what I did. So in this particular case, I'm going to do -a-m, and I'm going to leave a message. I'm just like, set up my associations. Okay? So the whole point of this is that I encourage you guys to commit when you make, again, substantive changes to your code base. And by substantive, I mean that might be setting up associations, that might be generating new code, that might be making some logical change to a controller. My kind of strategy for my commit and push strategy tends to be I commit throughout the day and I push at the end of the day. So I might have 10 or 15 commits in a day, but only one push. Okay? And that kind of gets to your point. So you can commit multiple times between pushes. That's totally normal. In fact, that's common.
Can you do just say Git without the commit, or like that?
Oh, shoot. Sorry, thank you. Man, Odette, you got to get down. I like this. So git commit -a-m, and the switches, you don't need the -a. I just do it because I don't know why. And then a message. You always have a message that's meaningful. Okay? So now at this point, where is this change? I've committed it. Where is it at? Just my local repository. It's not in my GitHub repository. Okay? So what I want to do now is I want to come back here. I want to make one more change. Make one more change. I'm going to change, let's see, in my views, come to users, or actually layouts, I'm going to add, something simple, right? I'm going to commit this. Okay? So I added a message, I added a header to my layout. So now I've made two changes. Again, neither of these changes are on GitHub. They're just on my local repository. So what I can do now is I can actually push these up to GitHub. And the lesson we learned just a few minutes ago is it's always before you push, you want to do a pull. So I'm going to do a pull real quick. Okay, I'm up to date. So this basically tells me that the changes I have on my local repository, there's nothing on the foreign repository, the remote repository, that I need to pull before I push. Okay, so always, and if there are, the good news is if there are changes, like so, say Odette and I were working on this together, if she had pushed up some changes, it would tell me, hey dude, you can't push until you pull. Git will tell me to pull. So I'll go ahead and, but in this case, I don't have anything to pull.
But when you pull, would you want to like look and see what those changes are? 'Cause you wouldn't-
Well, so the thing is, so we'll talk about that here in a second. So that's a great question. So I'm going to go ahead and push. Okay. So now I've pushed my changes up. And I can come back here. And I can see that there are now 5 commits. I can click on that. And I can see the individual commits. Remember, I did 2 commits. 2. I committed the associations, and I committed the, adding a header to the layout. So every commit you do on your local machine, if you do 1, you do 10, all of those will show up here, even if you just push 1 time. Okay?
Can you go back to the terminal?
Mm-hmm. Any questions?
So you can then, when you are looking at these, go and look at the code prior to throughout the history of these events, correct?
Yeah, so there's a
You
way.
can pull before, like, there was a change made, and you want to see the code before the change.
Is that kind of like what Scott was asking?
So
I think so.
I have no
So the question was, I think you guys were asking the same question. So, can you look at the code? Like, let's say Odette and I are working on this together, right? She pushes up some changes. Can I see those changes before I pull them down to my computer? Is that the question?
Mine was more like, should you? Like, do you get in a conflict if you're working in the same?
Oh, right.
database?
Yeah. So the answer is, should you? Not necessarily, because the rule of thumb, and this is a pretty hard and fast programming rule, you can commit to your local repository broken code. And by broken code, I mean untested code. Code that you aren't sure it works, think it works, don't know. You should never push untested broken code. And by that, I mean you don't want to push to GitHub code that you're not sure if it works. The reason being, it's sort of a trust thing. And this is a very gooey answer I'm giving you guys. If Odette and I are working on a code base, and this is true of like every code base I've ever worked on, I don't ever look at the code that I pull down before I pull it down. I just assume that whomever pushed it up and tested it has made sure it works. Does it always work? Hell no. It definitely doesn't. But does it most of the time? Yes. So you can look at code, but you don't usually.
So there's no like regression. You testing from development.
You do want to do some regression testing, but we're going to get to test-driven development, how you might test and make sure your code works. And I'm not sure if that's what you mean by regression.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. If her push breaks your
Yeah.
push.
Yeah, exactly. And that happens. So then the other thing is, and this also happens, so Odette and I are working on the exact same file, user.rb, the model. Do you have a question? Oh, okay, so we're working on the same file. What happens is Git is pretty smart, so that when it pulls down the changes that Odette has made to Git, Git is going to make a wild guess. Actually, I'm sorry, not a wild guess, an educated guess as to how her changes merge into my changes. That's called recursive merging. Okay, and don't worry about what that means. All that you care about is that Git will attempt to merge the file for you, merge her changes into my changes. Okay, and I would say about 2/3 of the time it's successful and it works great. Now that leaves about 1/3 of the time where Git throws its hands up and says, "I can't merge these changes. I can't. I don't know what's because we might have changed the exact same line of code. We might have changed the associations, exact same thing. And Git at that point is like, don't know. You have to go in and merge those changes yourself. And there's like little syntax inside the file, and we're not going to get to that right now. But there's syntax inside the file. When you open up open up Sublime, you'll see it's clear as day. It's like, here's Odette's code, and here's TJ's code. I don't know which one's authoritative. So at that point, if I know, I'm like, oh yeah. I might know that I'm authoritative, or I might just call up Odette and be like, hey, I see we did the same thing at the same time. Let's talk with this through. So, yeah. So here's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to make some changes, some minor changes to your local repository. I want you to commit them and push them up and see the changes in GitHub. So spend the next couple minutes doing that. And for those of you who aren't set up, call me over and I'll come take a look at your repository. Did you have another question for me? Oh. That's good, man.
Yeah.
Steven, you got your set up?
I try to do the poll.
So
and
when
then
we
it's
just
awful.
dash A, that's what the user will skip the get add space dot stuff. So that's what I was asking earlier. Why would you have to use the dash A if you get the get add?
It's got everything in there anyway.
That covers it. So
You
that-
don't have to do that the first time.
well, I think
You're
it's
initializing it.
well, you can do it, but that's splitting it into two commands. Is what I'm saying. If you could get, you could do get add space dot and then get commit dash A.
Try that.
Or you could basically combine them into one step.
Yeah.
Get commit dash A. So that's saying
Same thing as at.
right, because it's exactly the same stage all the files that have been changed.
I wonder if that even when like before you do your first you have to do that.
Test it, but I mean,
Yeah. So
I've
It would
always
make
done it.
sense that you can have to.
Right,
I'm in the repository now. I just deleted that old one.
I guess-
get in it.
TTS.
I guess that would be more for when you're
Okay, so then get
smaller
add
changes
space dot.
when you're still working on your
you think that which one would be?
the space dot.
Well, that was
And then
lines up.
get
It was
remote,
when we
and then
pushed
whatever
up the very first line and we pushed the entire project. We did get add space dot.
Oh
And that was really great. See, I think,
Game mode add or
I think your get commit dash A, that takes care of the get add space dot.
Does it do it? Does it all roll it all into one?
Well, I've in the past done get add space dot and then get commit without the A. But you're basically combining into one command that way. It seems.
I think I've read that too. I've had goofy like where files don't get added.
On the Git tutorial on Treehouse.
Yeah.
It says that when you do the add dot, that's adding it to the staging area.
Right.
And then when you do the Git dash A, that's saying, okay, I want all of those files that I added to the staging area committed to.
Oh.
So that's what it says.
But by not doing get add space dot, they weren't staged prior. So that's why I'm thinking it stages it in the same command. It stages it and commits it.
All I know is I've done it this way for like 3 years and
This
it
is
worked.
better.
Yeah.
It's one less step.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to do the get add space dot. So it's one less step.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, I'm just saying from between your first commit, set up my association to the next one, you know, you made a change between,
yeah.
but you never had to stage it again.
Yeah. So the git add you only do when you're adding new files though. I haven't added any new files.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
You just change it.
Yeah, I'm just changing. I'm monitoring. Exactly.
Adding files as opposed to adding changes.
Yeah.
What
What you got?
While you're still working,
Okay, that's fine.
if I'm adding them to resource, do that, do the git add space.
Right, because
Before I
that,
even push it to.
right, before you submit it, that would just push the migration stuff when we make the files. And when you do the git status, you would see what all the different files are.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to add space, or add space a specific file.
It's kind of like when I like save as you go.
Right.
So that commits and makes the changes to your local repository. So after that,
You got it?
Git remote add origin.
So, and this, be careful what version you're still in. Well, because it, I have no idea. I know. I think what's happening is that it's attempting to look for. Go ahead and type your username and password. See what happens. Everybody else, how we doing? You still good? You figured it out?
Okay, so do I do git remote add origin and then the URL around doc did.
I think I said that.
No, not yet.
No, it's
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, right. I think it's just a good idea to make sure that you're not splitting off from the last update. That's why you can get and that's, yeah, I mean, if you knew that you've got the most recent version on
How we doing, guys?
So you said you add some changes and then go back and you go through the process again of committing those.
Yeah, so we're not. So we've already like kind of set up our repository. Now I want you to commit, push, kind of get comfortable making changes. Bless you.
Make it full origin master.
Yeah. So do it status. Okay. So you've got a bunch of untracked files there. So you get add.
You're using the graphical user interface. You don't want to use that. You want to use the web page.
Yep.
You know, it's giving you the example.
That's it. No, get add dot. That's it. Okay, now to get status. Okay, so now you've got all these files that are modified. So now you would get a.
you save everything. Get status right. It'll say.
Oh, I'm sorry, Steve. How are you doing? Still broken?
Nothing's changed.
Okay, so we'll have to look at this after class. I don't know. Can you really recommend this?
Yeah.
It might be some of your config files? Okay. How we doing, guys? If you guys have a handle on it, so here's what I want you to do. If you have a handle on this, I want you to pick somebody next to you, one or two people, and I want you to add each other's collaborators on each other's projects. So pick somebody's project, and I want you to get comfortable collaborating back and forth. So the way you add a collaborator is you go to the settings for that particular repo on the far right-hand side. So settings, and then collaborators, and then you just type in their username. Yep.
So TJ,
Yeah.
That's, I mean, of course, it tracks it easy that way. But for example, we didn't get added to yours as a collaborator, so it's not necessary, right, to pull it.
To pull. Okay, so that's a great question. So collaborators, you need to be a collaborator to push changes to the repository. To pull, you can do a pull if it's a public repository. You're able to pull changes anytime without being a collaborator.
And if you're once a collaborator, like we're collaborators, you don't have to.
Say what?
For that,
Private screen.
I've done it on.
Oh, okay.
So,
Get commits, right?
Yep.
Now is it get push order master again?
Yep. So the order is actually. Well, I'm going to write it up here.
Alright, good.
So if you go ahead and start working with each other, like some collaborators, pick again, do one or two because we have an odd number of people. So and then real quick, what I want you guys to do is make changes and get comfortable like pushing those changes, and you make really minor changes, really inconsequential changes, right? But get comfortable seeing other people's changes, pulling them down to your computer, pushing your changes up, that kind of stuff, okay?
So is it we adding each one of us or we collaborate?
So somebody owns the project. So I'll go ahead, let me just do this real quick. Scott, you three right here, Odette, your project, okay? Jamie and Andrew, your project, you're the main, admin is collaborator.
right, so one of us is
You
gonna
three
be
over here,
the
Sam,
original person.
you're the main, so add these two as collaborators.
So you want,
And Lion, you're the main, that's the two as okay?
so it already found.
So we have
So you gotta click on it.
So everybody got that?
You are.
You guys got that over here? Odette, you're in charge. Tyler, you're not in front of you. Steven, so I'll tell you what, the three of us,
So now that I've
you
got
guys
it.
use this minor cost. Email
Okay,
me
so
y'all's your username.
now for us to plug it, we need to know your project name. I mean, well, your username and project name. Okay, so I'm gonna put the number here.
I'm gonna be in charge of and I'll add you guys to just go and say
slash user.
MISC Evans. Works that way too. It's one of those things where, hey, back in 1997, I set up a Yahoo account. Who knew that internet was
Right. Yeah.
That's right.
That's a lane out of it.
Well, Diddy is something you say to
Ozzy,
like,
3,000.
like, you
Diddy?
just say after a person's name.
Oh, sorry,
Your
you say?
sister, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were being like, since it was,
Oh,
P. Diddy or
I
something.
had this before that.
And I thought it was kind of cute because it knows what the sound of your name.
Yeah, that's why.
You forgot.
He did it from.
No upper folder, so you're not in the project that you would create,
Okay.
and then do git clone, and then the address is gonna be the normal.
Oh, so I did.
Mm-hmm. So back out of your project.
So once this one's set up.
Yeah.
So what I want, so real quick, what I want you guys to do is, remember I kind of made the project leader. So Sam, Tammy, Scott, me. I want you to assign to your team just super minor changes. So for instance, Scott might say, Mike, I want you to make the background green. Nitty, I want you to set up the associations. You know, whatever it is, assign very small little tasks for your project. So whenever you're done, you'll commit them and you'll push them, and then work together to get all those changes onto a next machine. Does that make sense?
I got one. Alright, I'll just put it back.
Sorry, one little path. So git clone is the URL.
Yeah, it's gonna be https github.com/username/project.
So that
So,
Right, because it's his project.
it's not project. It's not like
So in your terminal, yeah, you said go get his project.
Okay, you guys send me over there your username. You guys, okay.
Install an image
she's so nice.
Did you get a tough assignment? Yo.
So if I'm the leader, it means they're going to be altering my project. These are my collaborators.
Yes.
So they're going to be working on it.
Yes, on your project.
Yeah, you need settings.
Meaning they'll have to at TJ.
Yo.
Meaning they'll have to clone it and then.
Yeah, so I've got it up there. So the first thing you do is you have to clone that repository to your machine. Make sure, real quick, you start off by cloning. So make sure you're not in a working Rails directory when you clone. Step one, I do that all the time. Back up.
There you go.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think you go into, let's see if we've got a clone here. Hard drive. So we'll just open it up this morning.
Yeah.
Hey, Steven and Mike, you guys should have just gotten emails inviting you to my repository. So the first thing you do is you want to clone that repository to your local computer. Remember, clone it not in a working directory. Wherever you're putting all your folders.
Initially,
Type
just
git
the follow
clone.
the same. I mean, imagine you
Yeah, wherever you're keeping all your
What's your
It's just
process?
exactly
so you want to see
the
that.
regular
So wherever you're keeping, I keep my stuff.
Everything's like
So I'll use git clone and then the git URL. Including
Yeah,
the
TTS 219, yeah. TTS 219.
So that full up.
TTS 219.
Okay.
So,
TTS 219. Yeah, that's not good.
work
Yeah,
life.
sorry.
Yep.
I call it demo
So,
119.
he can now access my folder.
Mhm.
and make changes on it. Is there anything that he needs to do?
That's the beauty of GitHub. You've added him as a collaborator on your project, and now he can go. He should have got
All
an
that
email
said,
saying, "Hey, I invited you to collaborate." So now he can go clone your repository onto his local machine.
well, I mean, it does help when you do a new one. Because,
Saw you.
you know, but they're not exactly the same. It's so I started locally first.
It's let me know when you guys have a
progression workflow.
So you can just do.
Oh, yeah, that would.
I think that's a great
Start,
Yeah, and then
So here's the new.
So real quick, hey guys. So when you're invited to collaborate, you're gonna go. You should get a URL to the GitHub repository. I haven't seen a email in a while, but it should take you here, I think, or maybe it has instructions for cloning in the email. I don't remember. It does. Okay, so the email has instructions on cloning, but you just grab the URL from here. Remember, on the right rail, the clone URL. It does. It's similar, but notice this URL right here on the right-hand side has a .git extension. So that's what matters. Okay. So, and then you're going to go to your terminal. You're going to go wherever you put your local Rails projects, and you're going to git clone that URL. And so that's going to take whomever's team you're on. It's going to take that repository and clone it to your computer. Cool? How we doing over here, Steve and Mike?
Where do you want the picture?
I don't know.
Well, it's a different tool.
Yeah, the food.
Same sheet. So we're kind of, is that what you said?
I get it.
Get to work, guys. Quit making jokes with it.
I really like that. I got yeah.
Yeah, don't.
What did you create?
So copy
Patience,
that.
I have name, sex, and age.
Go
And
and
I'm gonna
turn
create a
on.
party. Patience. Okay.
Are you in a directory where you store all of your Rails projects? So let's get there.
That's it, straight. You make it straight.
So are you ready? Are you able to run it? So a good first step, everybody, once you clone the thing down, is start up Rails and make sure it runs. So what I want you to do, Stephen, is I want you to go in and
expiry date.
add
Well,
a header
you
nav.
would want to pull for you.
I'm gonna pull yours.
Well, you could make changes. You know, for example, I didn't tell you about that. You didn't have to make changes. You could do whatever, get some work done, but just pull before you push it. Because that's what we're like, oh, by the way, someone updated it since you last.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll see comment on
So
that.
CD, space until then, basic your
Once you clone it,
Yeah, so yeah, use it.
CD.
Just view the source. Because, you know, you have to see it on right click.
How about
Then Yes.
Right my word.
You have to leave the window or the file and come back for because I already changed the users in the
Your project,
I
make sure it
don't
goes
see
into
it in the
change the background color to red.
There's no way you'll see it.
You're gonna add a header.
I need to add
Whoa,
your,
that is freaky.
I need to add your,
am going to,
That's freaky.
okay,
That's
so
what
I need to add your, URL
I'm gonna add it
Get,
push. You got it here?
I got the hang of it.
because you can
Okay, cool. So now,
Yeah, sorry,
done.
so commit, do the commit dot a dot
To
my
get
word,
it?
and you
Yeah, you're in. Okay, that's
he's at HTTP back where
I mean only if you've never had that project on your side. So if it was a new project, so you did clone before you shared the homework the last week. That particular project has been cloned and now has a new and it's linked to but if I do another project,
Make sure that, yeah, make sure it's CDA that. You're gonna change
you
your
have to do
background
the get commit dot
color. You
a.
want.
The
How you guys do it?
So I added you as a client.
you start so you don't have to clone it, you're like,
What is 8 classes?
cloning is just basically
Oh,
so it's on your machine if you don't have it on yours. But since you've written it in the same it's already
And when you're done, you want to commit and push your changes.
there. And basically taking it from the file and putting it
Expiry date.
That's okay.
Oh my God, I bet you that dog is an asshole. I'm just saying. It just looks like the dog just kind of looks like it'd be a pain in the ass.
That's tax. You could have said that before you asked. Whether it was your dog.
Okay.
But I appreciate that. Push.
But
But-
can you go in?
but-
I think I saw it on.
But you want to pull first because I made a change.
Changes on GitHub.
You can, but remember, you and Todd are teammates. You trust
Yes, login. You should have.
whether you should trust Todd or not. You make the decision, but you do trust Todd. So you don't necessarily need to go in. You can go and look at his changes if he's pushed them up to GitHub. You can see them on GitHub.
So then now I have to do the push man.
I've already like gotten moving.
Then do the push again or just report
Well, you don't, I mean, have you made any changes?
earlier before I asked?
So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
you should pull to make sure that, I mean,
More detail.
you don't have to use
Yes.
So.
So the push.
Now, I think push.
Don't worry,
Josh.
How we doing, guys?
Check the form. Terrible.
Terrible.
Let's see. Oh, I got two here. You're
Now.
cool. That's kind of
Yes, it should also be in the asset.
with this. What's a
resource. You should, if you would see the picture on it, because that's what it is on ours. So for some reason I did make it so GitHub, because you would actually see it on
If you see a
So that's not very
there. Maybe you didn't do the git add space box. It's a new file.
So what these slides anything here that
Well, see, the git add adds new documents. Like if it's a new file that wasn't working, the git dash a is to add all changes.
yeah, I mean, this is why I do it. It's a very kind of, it's probably overkill the way I do it, but I've found that
it doesn't break
it doesn't break it. It always gets on my file. So if you add a new file, you always do git add dot, and then git commit dash a dash. This is just me.
Right, no, I'm getting like, so the message is literally what's in parentheses. What's a message? This is something else.
Oh, the message is what did you change? Oh, I added a new image or
Right, so you can literally just say I want to know what you're telling me you changed. It's what I got. The files have changed.
Yeah, you don't have to say which files have changed because that comes by
That's
default.
what I was saying.
Oh yeah. It's a summary. It's a summary of the things you did.
Yeah, each message should give you an idea of what
You can try it.
Yeah, I was just like,
It
I'm
doesn't
slow.
say, so I click it, space, add dot space, it
unpacking some objects.
that's what it is.
and see it's actually on the site. Yeah.
Awesome.
So you know that you added it.
Okay,
You can try that.
2 seconds. I'm getting with my team. I'm doing something.
I'm not updating the controller.
what is it?
Good job.
All right, dudes.
So I was able to pull together.
John Smith called me.
Show you the changes.
How's your team doing?
You're just supervising?
How we doing here?
Yesterday when I
This guy's right. No.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's what you said it's broken.
On mine, it gives me the URL.
Because if anything that was changed on Diddy's side that may have, made it need to rate DB migrate.
Well, yeah.
Because she made it like, she might have made changes that she felt cool
You can
that
see it
required to rate it. Okay, so I just pulled Diddy. I tried to understand this is what happened. So I'm like, alright, well, I gotta rate. I don't know exactly what she did exactly. All I know is it didn't load, so I'm gonna rake again. So something she did, because it was working fine before. She did it, not causing a requirement to rate.
So you're not going to see the page being run. You're only just going to see the
Maybe. They were, I think what happened was, when I pulled lyrics, you had certain columns, and then, well, you didn't have to do migration. Anyhow, I was doing migration, and users and projects.
Didn't commit that whole.
You know what? I'm trying to run the server. Before I even pulled these, I would have had to wait because you had columns that I never had. So forget having anything to do with new changes. It's just that that's the first time I've run the server since I funded the project.
Okay.
And now that I've run it, or the migration anyway.
Jamie, how we doing?
We're working with my.
What are we stuck on?
My notebook. I'm trying to push it to the back.
It's still, what page is it?
I've got it in here.
Or did you guys put Yeah, we can see it in the directory, in the Sublime directory. But we're not going to see it on the server. Right, yeah. So, for example, I'll just go here and I'll browse in the assets and I'm sure I'll see it.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right. So I've got two images.
Working from
I didn't have them before. Those are your images. It's coming through as validation. So I've got it in my project. I pulled from it. So, let's see what I'll do right now. I'm going to add it to a video. So I'll do that while y'all
I
are
already
playing.
added it to,
Okay.
application.
Okay. Okay, so it's above the yield. So any subpage, like if I get slash user, I should see it.
Maybe I
That's placeholder for it.
You could probably make
check my syntax.
Could be the image is too big or something.
like all the changes,
Is it
like show and all this
file?
stuff.
Yeah.
You're gonna change it.
wanna go in?
How many guys?
No, I
Because I have so I think it's
Oh, but I'll do it. Just to get this whole get the thing out. I'll do it real quick.
Oh, yeah, but I
So yeah, just like you said, it's a path issue.
it's like
I'm
permission
gonna
denied
do
to like
I like the TJ does. This is a slash
maybe like the
assets.
default is
slash, and then you don't have to do if you all you don't have to go down into the images folder. Just slash assets, and it knows okay. It should be there. So I'm gonna try to do it locally now. So refresh.
How do you merge files?
And I didn't get below. Size and front.
It actually shows what you deleted as well.
I don't know if that's a problem, but just since I refreshed it, like, I'm putting
When you went
the width
to spread,
height
you deleted
in
one.
front of the source collection. I'm not sure if that's a problem.
Like you deleted one field and then you.
Or when I just refresh it.
Exactly. The red shows you deleted. TJ.
That's just like,
This is what red hand. Red means you deleted something.
Oh,
It's nice.
oh, I think it's also that your image name is capital IMG.
Yeah, but now somebody merge them. Merge.
Right. So now I'm gonna push
You need to try.
this project, so you all need to
So you
change.
want the image file.
Okay, so I do get status.
To get an image file to go up, it has to be installed. And the entire directory.
You, so,
I couldn't
yeah,
access
okay, hold on a second.
The
So,
private assets, did you put in,
I did not, but he fixed it.
so what happens, no, what happens, you can't,
I
hold on,
like the way TJ.
you can't do a pull.
Slack, if you use Slack,
Without
it goes to the
the
root of the
stats.
project, right?
I mean, sorry, you can't do a pull.
And you don't
If
have to
you have
specify
uncommitted
images
changes.
at that point.
So,
It knows.
the rule of thumb is like,
To look at it.
before you do a
Into
pull,
that
in
file.
quotes.
you do a
Yeah,
commit.
so
So you got, I've got the order up there, you wanna do
and it
commit,
equals quotes.
then a
and
pull,
that part.
then a push, right? So hey, real quick, everybody. So I'll come back to you. Everybody. So one thing that you have to do, and you guys are all, I think, experiencing this, is there's a very specific order in which you do things in Git. Very specific. Okay. You started off by cloning your project leader's project on your computer, right? So we started there. I think we got most everybody working on that one, right? Then you went and made some changes, and I've got it written down on the whiteboard. You make some changes. Then you commit your changes. You can't do a pull or a push if you haven't committed your changes. Okay? So what's I'm seeing on a lot of people's computers is that we're trying to pull or push without committing our changes, and Git simply won't let you do that. So the rule, what I always do, git status is the command I run more often than not, because git status always tells me where I currently am with my changes. Have I committed them? Have I staged them? Have I pushed them? Whatever. So if I have no changes to commit, then I can do a pull to get, say, Odette's code. And then I can push. So remember, commit, pull, push. Cool? And then obviously, sorry, one more thing. If you need to add. So if you have unmerged or untracked changes, you need to add, then commit, then pull, then push. Right.
Oh, and you only have one to do.
I mean, like if you made an
It's
extra.
just git add. That adds everything in. So now it's just status.
Like if you're not working with just what we have, let's say you want to create a
And that tells you you just now added it.
you have to add that file.
And now you can pull and then push.
Why? What are you?
So yeah, I just call it.
When you say
If you have files you've added, so you add images, or you add your controllers, or you add your
What was
files.
actually the solution? What was
That's
the-
gonna add new files.
It probably wasn't the width and height.
If you do
That
a
was before I
scaffold,
saw
But
the
they did a
shiny
scaffold
look.
to create a new
Yeah.
resource.
So
then you
first
definitely
I
get
add
that. You
slash
definitely get that.
assets
So they do
slash.
I didn't, I think.
It
Pull
should
it
not.
in. And then
Sorry.
and what's cool is check it out. So when you actually click, if you want to know what the change was,
What he deleted, what he added.
Guys, I'll be right back.
is that it? It gets loud when that's recorded. I think it's, you know, lectures just one of the options out there.
You need your password.
It's when people talking over each other.
It's not gonna move the cursor at all.
No, it's not.
No, so you're gonna have to just know. Typing it in, it's not gonna put an asterisk or anything.
Right. We didn't add. That's right. You just kind of fit. We add a resource.
Yeah,
That was the same way.
But what he's saying is when you add a resource, like if you
Yeah.
start,
But he said you can do it even if you're not. Is it a good rule of thumb just to do add anyway?
Right, let's go through this again.
Yeah.
We added a few.
Yes.
Right. That counts as.
So- let's do this.
Yeah, let's.
Hey guys, so we're gonna walk through this kind of with my team over here. So there's some confusion about what add actually means, and that's totally acceptable. I totally get it. So remember, add is just about adding new files. New files. So where I'm at, I'm in my directory right now. Git status. Okay, I have nothing to commit. Nothing. Everything's cool in the game for me right now. But I'm going to add a new resource. Okay, so git Rails G scaffold, and we're going to call this. We're just going to do blog because it's easy, and we're going to say user ID integer. What's that?
Just consider user ID.
Oh yeah. And then entry text string. Okay. So now we're all familiar with the scaffold command. It creates a whole bunch of new files. So now, again, git status is the thing you're going to run more often than not. So git status. Oh yeah, but I'm just doing git. I'm just demonstrating. So I've done scaffold, which creates a whole bunch of files. So git status tells me two things here. One, we've modified an existing file. And two, we've added a whole bunch of new files. That's what untracked files means. So here's the tricky part. I can commit, pull, and push right now. I can do that. Git does not know that I'm about these untracked files. So if I do git commit j-m new resource. I forgot to actually add the files through git add dot. Okay. Okay. So here's what I just did. Let me walk through exactly what I just did. I created a whole bunch of new files. Right. I committed those changes without adding the new files. And this is one little teeny tiny flaw with Git. It should check that, oh, hey, wait, are you sure you don't want to add your untracked files? It doesn't do that. So now I can push my changes up to GitHub, and it won't actually deploy all these new files. It will not, because I haven't run git add. So this is one of those things where you just have to remember or experience broken builds a bunch before you realize you've got to actually do a git add when you create new files.
So let's say you made the necessary changes. You committed it. If you run a status, would it tell you you haven't added something?
Yes. So now I've committed, and I can do git status. It'll still tell me I have untracked files. It'll still tell me that these files are untracked, meaning
When it's untracked,
that means GitHub's not watching. GitHub's not. They're not going to GitHub.com. They're not going to GitHub. And
when you get untracked files, it means you need to know, you need to add.
yes, anytime you see untracked files, you need to run a git add. And that's why git status. Like I said, I run git status almost every time I do a put or pull or push. I run git status to kind of as a sanity check. Oh, whoops! I forgot to add my files. And that's exactly what I see here. I have committed my code, and I can still push it because these are untracked. GitHub's like, I don't give a crap about untracked files. So now I'm going to add those files, right? Okay, so now I just added them. So git add dot. So if I run a status again, I'm going to see now we're tracking these changes. We're tracking these files. And now I won't be able to pull without committing these. Okay?
Where can we see that the status has changed on the file?
Yeah, so it's changes to be committed. So now I see that these are new files.
And before it said something different? up
Yes. It said untracked files.
there?
Yeah. So pay very close attention to untracked files. So that tells me I need to add. I need to run a git add. Okay? So here's what I have. So if I do git status, I have all these files that are now added but not committed. I've not committed these changes. So if I try to pull, well, there's no changes to pull. If there were changes, it would give me an error. It would say, oh, you can't pull without committing. Remember, so the order is always git add, if you have to add new files, then you commit, then you pull, then you push. So now I'm going to commit my changes. Oops. Remembered to add my changes. And remember, the message is simply a summary of the changes you made. It's a human-readable summary so that when Scott comes in to see my code, he's like, oh, Knucklehead forgot to put his changes in there. That's what this commit's all about. And now I just created those changes, so now I would push those changes. Okay? Oh, I don't know. I'm not. Yeah. Yeah, pull is pretty short for me, so.
I could just set it up for pull.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Well, you don't want to do that. Though. Remember, you don't want for every commit. It doesn't mean you have a push. You can commit to your local repository unbroken code, untested code, and then only once you've tested it, only then once you've confirmed that you want Mike to be able to work on that code, is then you push. Yep. All right, let's. Hey guys, it's 9:50, so we kind of ran long. Let's take a 20-minute break, and then when we get back, we're going to start working on a new project. But really quick, do me a huge favor. Do what? Oh, nothing.
We had an issue yesterday as well.
Well, it is what it is, guys. So go ahead and take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to start a whole new project, and we're going to start playing with it and working collaboratively on this project. So take a break, and we'll reconvene at 10:10. How are you guys doing? Did y'all get squared away?
Maybe a combination
Oh,
of
good.
these.
Good,
I'll
good.
see it on my screen.
Steven, you still broken?
I think it might be
Yeah, I
something
think it's
like
just some
that.
key combination.
Because
And
it
it's
I
like
like switch it to
And yeah, it's red, so
get it
that's
like
why I
local that username.
That what I did was after
Still like has like the key associated with my old account or something. So that's stuff like SSH key. So it's like
yeah, you were talking
Yeah, you
about
may want to Google multiple.
username, right? I stick right at
It sounds
I
like
don't know where you're going, but I'll go anything.
move to right now.
yeah.
Well, it seems like more professional. I don't want to like
Oh, yeah.
There might be a way
But yeah, so keep that hammer on and let me know what's the difference.
No, I'm just giving you general life advice.
That was tech crunch last night. Was it cool?
Go crazy.
Did you go?
There was a company up there that I kind of done some stuff with.
I didn't recognize all knew like 2 or 3 companies.
Yeah. Wow. I'm the same worker, but I'm just kind of like, I got there once.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hammer. So it was like so loud. I couldn't hear anything the panel was asking
We did.
It's just so damn nice outside.
My company did that at South by Southwest.
Oh, dude,
And
that's
got
a
up at-
brutal place to do it. I mean, good for you guys.
Got up at Austin City. It was at Austin City limits. There's like 3,000 people there.
How'd you do?
Did all right. I mean, it wasn't a competition. It was just get up and pitch, and then
Well,
all.
you know.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
mean, it was. We were kind of in the middle of a pivot, so it was a little bit. We were still trying to figure out our ways. This is actually 2 years ago. So.
Yeah,
but-
I did 3 or 4 of those
Mhm.
pivots.
That's my middle name.
Right? Yeah. You
Shit,
got
man. Yeah. Oh. Oh boy.
I did go to the have you heard visually? Visual Nova?
No.
It's a guy that I know started this company. They just got 8 million.
Oh, wow.
And he gave a talk last night at the AIGA, so I went to that.
AIGA.
It's the interactive something.
We're gonna go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, man. Sorry, thanks for waiting. But it's they do some cool stuff, and I'll give you the rundown. Like they do these crazy, like infographics.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I know a company like that here in town called Juice.
Yeah, I know those guys too.
Oh, yeah.
What they've got here though is they've got it's kind of a scam, but it's a brilliant scam. It's basically a marketplace for freelancers. So what they've got set up is they're based in Silicon Valley, of course, but they've got like these creative directors in house. So for like the Cokes and the Turners and the Ciscos, right, those projects get done there.
Yeah.
But then they've got this marketplace of like visual designers and animators and everything all across the globe.
Mhm.
And they jump in and you can go in and say, I want a project done, and they outsource that
Oh,
project
yeah.
across the thing. It's an interesting model.
Yeah.
So it's a clever model.
It's interesting to see how all that's kind of going down. Like, I can't wait to see what the landscape for work for employees, especially in information technology, knowledge workers, people like us, what it's going to look like in 5 years, because it's so decentralized now and so, like, I mean, gosh, nobody hires people anymore.
No,
It's a contract. I mean, and I love it. It's great.
it's a philosophy change.
It's totally philosophy.
It's really being embraced, because you get like the old guard, it's retiring.
Yeah.
And you have like the new guard that's coming in, and the new guard's really comfortable with decentralized remote stuff, where the old guard was like, I need you there.
Yeah.
Right. Like I knew my old managers when I first started, like work from home.
Yeah.
Like what are you doing at home? They're really insecure about it. They weren't deliverable based businesses.
Yeah.
Now everything's deliverable based businesses.
Yeah.
And you can do anything for me.
I know, it's crazy, man. Oh, that's a good time.
I'm having fun.
Hell yeah.
How's Weenco? Is that your only?
No, we've got two. We&Co has a sister company called Standard Code. So We&Co is, it's okay. Our big problem is we're just not figuring out the sales model. Our big problem is, we know the sales model. We think we know what the right sales model is, but it means ramping up and raising a lot more money. And so we did a round of like $400,000, and that is what built out the product and kind of figured out product market fit and all that. And now we know what the sales model is, but that means going to raise like a couple million, and we just don't have it in us. Like, we're not fundraisers. I hate it raising money.
It's I think I was having a conversation last night with somebody. It was a visual guy, right? So he's the chief content officer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then they've got the guy that I know is actually the CEO. We're having a discussion. He goes, well, we just raised this round. We're really hoping that now he'd be backing the CEO.
Yeah.
That's what the CEO does.
Yeah.
I never saw my CEO.
Yeah.
Right? I was running the business.
Yeah.
He was out
Raising money.
raising money, proselytizing.
Yep.
That's what he does.
Exactly.
That's what they do.
It's and that's my role in the company, and I hate it. And so we made a concerted effort we stopped raising money last summer, and so we spun up another company called Standard Code that does consulting. And it's at the point, to be totally honest with you, like, we're seriously thinking about shutting We&Co down and just devoting all our time and resources to Standard Code, because Standard Code is like, there's 4 of us, and the developer community right now, God, there's just not enough people, which is why your timing could not be better. Yeah, there's so much work out there and not enough people to do it. And
Even with the small amount of knowledge.
Yeah, I mean that's something I was talking about with Tammy, and I know you guys have a guest speaker. I think today. Yeah, so they'll come in and kind of help give you the landscape from the recruiter's perspective. Now, I was talking to Richard about this yesterday. I mean, I've kind of said this a couple times, but like the most important thing for you guys now is to get experience under your belt, because everybody knows that. Can you train somebody to be a programmer in 2 months? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Can you train them? But see, here's the thing. What does a programmer need, right? They need experience, because there are so many goofy problems that you guys have all encountered that the only way to really get comfortable seeing all that stuff is to see it over and 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 over again. So that's the only thing that separates a developer with 2 years experience and 5 years experience isn't ability to understand syntax, the ability to write code. It's the ability to troubleshoot problems. It's the only thing that separates them. So, like, all y'all need to care about is start organizing your mind right now to getting an internship, getting a gig of some kind. Don't care what it gets paid. And I know that's easy to say for me because I have a paying job. Doesn't pay regularly, but it pays whenever I get work done. But it's to get a job, to get experience in a real development shop or a place where you're going to work under other programmers. And it's that experience that's going to lead to a paying job. That's going to lead to a really good paying job. That's going to lead to you starting your own company. And that's all. I mean, and I think you guys, because this is a more mature group, you guys understand that, experience is what you need, right? A lot of people when they're 21, 22 are like, oh, I'm going to get a job making $60,000 a year. And some people can do that, but not everybody. And so you got to get experience first before you can go out and get that sweet paying gig.
To me, I think what's important to me is making sure that that's the focal point, getting experience, but getting experience in a culture that is good at allowing for that or teaching that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
You just don't know.
Who you're going to be working with and depending on sort of to lead the way.
Yeah. Not all developers, I mean, and I'll tell you this, and you guys already know this, not all developers are the easiest people to work with or work for. Developers, as a general lot, tend to be very arrogant people, tend to be very intelligent people, and arrogance plus intelligence can sometimes lead to, yeah, exactly, yeah. So, there's a lot of us who, like, I love this. This is something I really enjoy doing because I want more of you in the community so that I can hire you, so that you can help me make more money. I'm just going to put it out there. That's what I want. That's what I want. I know, right? Yeah. There you go. Exactly. But yeah, not everybody has that same mentality and patience that you guys are going to take time.
Right.
You're going to take time.
Yeah, I worked in a web startup years ago.
You and me both.
And I worked with a guy who was brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, he could do all kinds of, he wrote all kinds of code. And
Yeah.
he was fluent in different languages. But he was a terrible teacher.
Yeah.
Terrible. And so they carried me over him.
Yeah.
And it was just such a bad mixture. And I regret it now. Back then, now I'm more seasoned. And
Yeah.
This is not a good.
Yeah.
This is not a good mix, and it didn't last. But back then, I was so naive about the whole industry.
Yeah.
That I stuck it out longer than I should have.
Yeah.
In the end, we worked it out, and he finally understood that his method of trying to convey information wasn't working for me, and we worked it out. But it was a lot of lost time.
Yeah. It sucks. And there's really, like you said, the only way to find that out is to go do it and be like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So,
Do you have a mentor?
No, I've been around, if you have. But I do strat dev for company Toolbox 9.
Yeah.
Provides mentors.
Yeah.
So, and I'm good friends with Jason, who's the CEO. So that's kind of like a default mentor. I don't know that I want to be a developer. I value independence. I'm doing this as getting my feet wet. It's kind of like hobby things. Like I've run a couple of businesses businesses, and I'm mainly operations. And now what I'm finding is I can take operations and product and turn that into kind of like advice for entrepreneurs and startups. You know, like last night, I was introduced to a couple people at the TechCrunch, and they might have some decent ideas, but they're not thinking about money, right? And I think about money,
Yeah.
and I think about time cost of money. I think about how you get from A to B without running straight to B. Like I was brought there to meet this one guy who started this company called Inver, and what he's trying to do is he's trying to do like him and his wife had a rocky thing, so he's trying to do like a relationship. He's trying to go. He wants to do a platform where it's like therapy, couples therapy, before you actually go to a therapist. And my philosophy, I'm asking questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And he kept asking me, why does it matter? I said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Right? You have to have people will buy why you do it if you've got the right message, right? And we finally get down to where he's saying that he was from Bangladesh and the women are treated horribly. And I said, that's women's rights. That's why you do it. That's why you got to do that. I said, you start from there and you come back in and say, look, you've got this big platform. And I said, you got to look at your audience. Men are never going to do this. Like men just don't do this. This is a women's product for women.
Yeah.
And I said, now you got to come out the gate. How do you start small? Because they're not going to pay for this. And I've been in mobile for 15 years.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in usability and access and like don't stop your dailies, make people listen, do something small, build on, collect data, show traction. So I'm looking at his business in terms of like what he's built, what he should be building, and scaling it back and doing action. And so I still want to do that. Like I still enjoy helping that. But this for me is like something that I want to get perspective on, and also maybe do some stuff with it as I move forward. You know what I mean? So we'll see. It's kind of like me starting some business. I actually want to do a call part. How do I think? How do I relate to people that I want to hire? That's
Well, that's great. I mean, I actually think that probably everybody in every profession needs to learn this because it's the way of the world.
Oh, no doubt.
And I regret that I didn't think about it sooner.
Long I was a mechanical engineer working in college, and that was all Fortran, Pascal. So it's like the coding language that I had was never object-oriented, it was very linear thinking, and I had to untrain myself a lot, to almost go, wait a second, I almost think like a machine, like I also like physical stuff, like I like taking apart stuff, touching stuff. So, so I look at this, and the nuances of this are like difficult for me to grasp sometimes. But for me to move from, it's just the way that I learn. I've got to learn, I got to know exactly what's going on before I pile anything else on top of it. So I'm still quite a bit behind in this class. I'm usually a week behind. The weekends I usually go, okay, let me go through everything again, really get down into it. But for me, the class is Monday through Friday or learning process. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is learning, conceptually understanding what's going on. And that's kind of how I'm trying to do it.
Well, I was trained as a graphic designer, and so one of the obstacles that I found is that in graphic design, you imagine the finished product, and that's a detriment to me because I think in pictures. I think of that finished product.
I'm opposite. I'm your exact opposite. I think you're exact opposite.
But it's really here. You really have to start with the foundation, so the skeleton foundation, and you really can't. Because it's an evolving process, like you said, you rebuild it in 5 minutes. You're going to change it, it's going to evolve, you're going to run into obstacles. And in visual problem solving, some of those aspects are evident. You have problems, you're shifting shapes and all sorts of elements around. But I feel like when I think in the finished picture way, it just gets in the way.
I was just telling them, I don't know if you've ever heard of a company called Visual.ly.
I have heard of it.
They're all about data visualization. And so, and they've got this marketplace for people who have your skills. It's like a brilliant, huge freelance network. So they do interesting stuff. I think they know. They think like you did. I do it differently. I need a problem to solve. I have a lack of, my biggest thing is imagination stuff. The project, I don't know what the project is. But if you gave me a problem solver, something
Yeah. Well, when I worked at a company called Webland Technologies, they created software, right? And what I love about that environment is everybody was like a software engineer. And, there were different people. Every team was made up of people with a different skill set, and each skill set was crucial to the success of the project. And designing world, that doesn't exist.
Yes.
So that when the project was successful, everybody was successful.
And files. Anytime you had files, whether it be images, views, Ruby, Darby, any physical file that gets added to your project, you have to do add to get that added.
So,
Yeah, because it's going to create a migration script. But I mean, and what we'll probably do is
the user.
at some point we'll probably ignore those files, but yeah, even then, just rule of thumb, don't get set.
Where am I managing rights? Where am I managing engagement? How do I maximize the engagement? How do I minimize the engagement rates? What do I consider success? What actually do I want the user to have? And so being a local screen, I started to make a real change. We hired underneath that, so I actually find
Excuse me?
be able to do it.
Yeah.
The need for you, right? And also marketing. I used to think marketing was fluff until I had to get my own product out there. And I realized, oh, you know what?
It is pretty crucial.
There is a skill there.
And so there are people that are just absolutely brilliant at marketing.
My focus is really like product marketing, monetization. Yeah, like I signed a new client, she's a singer, so I signed a record label, and they brought me on to like do something to do the visual strategy for them, and they just don't want to do it the same way. So I'm thinking, I'll come up with a weird, like, bring the artist to the people versus people to the artists. That approach, I'm doing all of the mobiles, and so I've been consuming the last 2 weeks with all this stuff. And now that I've got all these ugly concepts, I'm going to need somebody to maybe not all confidence they can execute on it. So, I'm maybe calling it.
Okay, guys. So the coffee drinkers among us aren't back, but we're going to get started again. Okay, here's what we're going to do with the rest of class. So today we are going to work together on creating a brand new project for generating a teams. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna actually use it, and I'm gonna post it to GitHub, and then you can actually do it. But we're gonna work on this together. Don't follow along. Don't feel like you have to actually write this code on your computer. So just follow along. We're gonna work collaboratively. We're gonna work together on this project. All right. This project is a quick summary. Is what we're going to do is we're going to have a collection of students. We're going to have teams, and we're going to randomly assign the students to those teams. So, yeah, okay. So I can write that down. Yeah. So, and we're not going to finish this today, by the way. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post it to Git. So we get it as far as we can in the next hour. I think it's I know. It's pretty hilarious what it is.
You know, like,
I have very good thoughts.
Okay, so students, teams. Okay, so this project is going to randomly assign students to a team. Okay, so no following along, no coding, no writing, just listening, just participating. Got it? So how do we think about this project? It's real straightforward, real simple, but there's a bunch of different ways we can do this. But we're going to start off with a website, right? And the first thing we need to do is we need to add students, right? So we have a resource called student. What are some attributes? What are things that describe those students?
Age.
First name, last.
Age.
We don't have to put age. Yeah. We don't want to know that Scott's like 65. To be honest.
Trust me.
It's
We
gonna
all
automatically
remember.
Yeah, you automatically get an ID, you automatically get date created, date, whatever. That's all we need.
Email.
That's all we really need.
Email.
Email, we'll put an email. You know what we'll also do? GitHub username. What's that?
That's what we do now.
Oh, there we go, now we know. All right, so then we get student, right? And we want to assign them to teams, right? So we need a table called team. And this is a pretty thin table. What does it need?
Team leader.
It's actually a good idea. How would we know the team leader?
I just left my food. I didn't even wait for it because it took 2 minutes.
So what we're doing is walking through this project that we're going to work on the next couple days. So we need a team leader. I like that idea in this resource. How would we know who the team leader is? What kind of field?
Team name
Team lead. Team lead is a student, right?
team leader.
Yeah, but what is the team leader? Like if the team leader is a student, how would we point back to the student table?
GitHub user? You do it that way, couldn't you?
You could, but there's a foreign key.
Leader ID.
Yeah. So leader, student ID, right? And that this comes back here and it's an FK.
Because it's keyed all the time to your ID, right?
So it's foreign key. And so here's the thing. As we're going through this, I'm realizing that there's a couple little things we're going to have to do a little bit differently. So this normal part of the conversation. So what I'm actually going to do, instead of a leader ID, we're going to tweak this a little bit. We're going to call this, we're going to say student ID. And I'm going to explain why I did this here in a second. Okay? So we're going to call this student ID. And it's still a foreign key to the student table. Okay? And then we're going to have a column called isLeader, which is just a simple true or false. Okay? So that tells us the student, who it is, so Mike, whether or not he's the leader, yes or no. We need one more column, team ID, right? So we need to know which team they're on. So, and this is a little bit confusing, I know, but there's already going to be an ID in here, but that's not the team ID. The team ID is going to be repeated. So if Todd and Odette and Mike are all on one team, they're going to be team ID 1, right? So, and that's something that we're going to generate ourselves. Okay? That's basically it. Real straightforward, real slim, real straightforward app that we're going to build. We're going to build this together. Okay, let's get started. So for those of you who are out of the classroom, so what I said is we're going to work on this collaboratively. We're not going to actually, you guys aren't going to code this. What we're going to do is we're going to get this thing started. So we've got another 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes. We're going to get it started, and then we're going to push it up to GitHub. And then I'm going to share the public repository URL with you guys, and you're going to be able to pull it down and start playing with it yourselves if you want to. Okay? All right, you guys, let's get started. So where do I start? Create a new app, right? Rails new. What do we want to call this thing? What's that? Team generator. Good name. Team generator. Okay. Go. My computer takes a little while with this for some darn reason. I don't know why. It drives me crazy. So you left food there?
Well, Minnie grabbed it. But,
That place isn't exactly peppy.
no, they don't think they're on top of it.
Ha
Not a good sign.
Well, I mean, they barely move, so they're not woken up.
was that like a little like oh
Yeah.
okay.
The risk of this falling over.
Just be careful, Scott. Just be careful. Gosh, be careful. All right.
What did you say call it?
Team generator.
So we're all doing it at the same time, then we'll just.
No, don't code.
Okay.
Don't
Just
code
watch
anything
it.
because I'm gonna get it started,
Okay, gotcha.
and then I'm gonna post it up to Git, and then I'm gonna want you guys to come and play with it, pull it down. We're gonna work. We'll do some interactive exercises. Kind of.
Make us collaborate.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, here we go. So we created a new project called Team Generator. I want this to be in Git. So now I'm going to go to GitHub, and I'm going to create a new repository. New repository. It's called Team Generator. Team Generator. Okay, it's public. I'm initializing the README. Boom. Okay. So now what do I need to do? Edit the README. So we'll do that. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Well, we'll do that in a minute. So what do I need to do? Nope. I need to initialize the repository. Since I'm creating the repository, the first thing I need to do is actually initialize this thing. So cd into test generator. Okay. Did I spell that wrong? Oh, team generator. Okay, so now I'm in team generator. How do I initialize the repository?
Git
Yes. Okay, initialize my repository. Now I need to commit my changes. First commit. Whoops. What did I do? What's that? I need to get the README, but I haven't actually connected to GitHub yet, so I need to add. So git add dot. Now I can commit. Boom. So now, because I'm creating a new repository, I need to connect my local repository to GitHub. And again, you only do this step when you are setting up a new repository. Okay?
We don't have to do this when you share this.
No. You're going to clone. Okay, so now I come back here. Who remembers this command? I'm connecting to GitHub now. What is that? Yep. Git remote add origin, and then my URL. My GitHub URL, remember, it's .git. Okay, now I've connected my local repository to GitHub. And I'm going to do something out of order. Todd told me to do a pull to get my README, but I'm going to do push just so you see the error. So I've committed everything. Everything's ready to go. Everything's staged. Git, push, origin, master, right? Oh, whoops. I tried to push changes without first pulling. Remember, you always do commit, then pull, then push. I skipped the pull. So I'm going to do that real quick. And because my computer hates me, it always loads this thing, which drives me nuts. And I haven't figured out why. So how do I exit out of here? Colon Q, exactly.
So TJ,
Yeah.
for you that's every time. So basically, it either happens every time on your computer or it doesn't.
Yeah, it just happened. I see that almost every time the merge, like it just, I haven't figured out why. So, and I haven't really spent any time trying to figure it out.
But I mean, I've never seen it, so I shouldn't
Yeah.
expect to see it.
Yeah, well, you might. At some point, you'll see it.
Oh, okay.
That's a given. You'll see that screen at one point in your lives, I promise. Just know that it's colon Q to get out of there. Okay, so now I've pulled I've pulled. Now I can push. So git push origin master. So I have just pushed up an empty project called Team Generator. There's really nothing to it. I haven't added any scaffolds. I haven't added any resources. Haven't styled it. Haven't done anything. Okay. No. Well, if you don't have any changes, yes. If you haven't made any changes, and if there's no changes at the remote repository, yes. But the rule of thumb is commit, pull, push. Okay. So what do we want to do now? I'm at y'all's mercy. I'm not going to tell you anything, so you tell me what to do. Okay. So what do I type here?
Rails, G, scaffold.
Student, right?
The first
Ah! I got a little hasty there, guys. Email, string. I'm going to call it username, just to be clear. And naming conventions are, again, it's part art, part science. But, yeah, I know, right? I type 900 words a minute with 9 billion errors. Okay, so now we're creating a resource. It's called student. That's first name, last name, email, GitHub username. Do we want to add anything else while we're here? Nope. Okay. Go ahead and push that up. Oh, ooh. Oh my gosh.
Sex equals
What's that? We're all equal in this class. Dudes and girls. All right, so here we go. We've got a student. What else do we need now? What do we need to do now?
you can scaffold right?
Let's go ahead and scaffold again. So this one's going to be called, gosh, TJ. And this one's called Team. What do we got here? And then is you can't read that? Is leader, and that's going to be an integer. Why is that an integer?
Because you're coming off of the student ID that was generated, no?
Binary.
It's
So
yeah.
1 or 0.
It's a 1 or a 0. No, I mean there's a way to do. So hold on one second. You can do binary or not binary. I'm sorry, bit. Which is a really teeny tiny integer, which is 0 or a 1. But the problem is, I've run into this actually more times than you'd realize, that you don't want to box yourself into too small of a number, because you may come at some point and have like is leader, and it might be 0 for yes, 1 for no, 2 for oh hell no, or whatever. Yeah. So anyways, I always just use integer. Did you have a question, Alex?
We use checkbox.
So we're going to use a checkbox, but so remember the important thing. These are data types for the data. So this is in scaffold. So we'll come in. That's a great point. Is there a boolean? I can't remember.
Yeah, you can use a checkbox.
Yeah. So we can go in and modify the view though. We'll do that in a minute. Okay. So we've got and then we need team ID, right? Team ID, and that's integer. What else do we need? We good? Flowing pretty good? Okay. All right, so now we have 2 resources, one called student, one called team. What should we do now? Rake, yep. Let's rake this thing. Rake, VB, rake. Okay. So now we've created 2 tables. Are we, what's that? Oh, do we think we're at a good stopping point here? Yeah, and not necessarily push, but commit. Okay, so this is a good point to commit. And what I would do is I would actually test it to make sure it runs, make sure it works. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and start the server up, and let's just make sure it runs. And here's why I want to do that right now, because what I'm noticing with all of you guys, and actually I do this myself. What we just did is a very common breakpoint. And what I mean by breakpoint, like it's a very common place where we break something. And so that's my rule of thumb is I commit right before or after common places where stuff gets broken. So that way, if I need to roll back, I can. If I need to revert, I can. And we'll talk about those commands here in a bit. And I also want to test to make sure it all kind of works the way I want it to. So let's open up our window here. Okay, so works. Let's create a student. Whoops. Oh, student, sorry. Okay, so let's create a new student real quick. So TJ Willman. Ah, fine. Odette, Cologne, Odette. I'll just do this. And then Odette is awesome. And create student. Okay, that works. Let's go make sure that teams work. Okay, real quick. Student is leader. Team. Create team. Okay, cool. Works. This is a good point to commit. What do I do? Yep. 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 Scaffolds added. All right. So now I have a commit. And what I can do now, and having given it some thought, what I want to do now is I want to actually, I'm going to share this repository. I'm going to push this up, and I want you guys to take it from here and work. And we're going to work in your teams, the teams that you're already in. And I want you to think about, again, we know what the assignment is, right? To create a way to randomly assign people into teams. And I want you guys to think about how we might do that. And use GitHub to collaborate around that. So let me think about the best way to share this code with you. Because if I can't obviously make you all collaborators on one project, because that'll get crazy. What I want to do is, hold on, let me push this up. Let me test something here. Okay, let's go to my repository. All my code should be in here. Yep. Let's see this real quick. Just give me 2 seconds, guys. Okay, good. All right, so this is what I want to do. I want you to use your team leaders to download, to go to this URL, and I'm going to send it to everybody right now. Team generator URL. Okay, now everybody has that. So whomever is the team leader for your group, go and download the zip file of this. Okay? Download the zip file, and then create your own repository. Same thing we just did, and add your teammates as collaborators. Okay? No, not clone it. Not clone it. I want you to download it as a zip. This is different. Cloning it actually binds you to this repository. I want you to create your own repository. So this is a slightly different way of sharing code. By cloning it, you are actually attached to this repository, and I don't want you attached to I want you guys out of my repository.
And this zip file doesn't have that.
Exactly.
Zip file.
Exactly.
That's how it's not associated.
Exactly. So you'll just take this zip file, and you'll put it wherever you put your, and you unpack it, and you'll see all the code you're used to seeing. Put it wherever you put your Rails files normally. And again, I want the team leader to do that. So I think that was Odette and Scott and Steven, you're the team leader, Sam and Andrew, or Tammy. All right, Tammy. So download the zip to your local computer. Everybody else, nobody else do it. Add it, and then add your teammates as collaborators. Yo, what you got? I saw a git ignore, but I don't see the git folder. Yeah. And when you run git init in that folder,
Downloaded it.
Okay.
I already got it. Yeah, so I got
So now on
Okay.
we're done with browsing. Go find the zip folder. There you go.
Well, there is no.
I don't know if you have to unpack it.
Fork basically actually
Where like now it's going forward.
this might be actually
And now
because
this is it. At this point, you there's no get.
actually
Right. So now
I wonder if I still download this might let you create your own repository.
actually, we're gonna send it to a new repo that you.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
okay, so you were. I'm sorry.
No,
And then
that's
told
actually
me that like not the speaker you can hear. So let's say something new.
he's gonna download the zip
But he'll first link
So,
the
and then he's gonna
zip
send up his
file
own
that he downloaded
He's gonna add
to
you
the repo he's created.
Yeah, this is
Well,
actually
no,
sort of
he-
like a format.
A separate, not one
And it's
picture.
in my thing already.
Hey guys, hey real quick. So there's actually two ways to do this. So if you've already downloaded a zip, you're totally fine. Keep doing it. But another way to do it is to fork. Up here, you see this fork? If you go to my URL, so again, if you've already downloaded it as a zip, keep doing it. You're totally fine. If you haven't, you can click the fork button, and what that does, it takes the. It's kind of like a clone. But instead of being bound to my repository, it creates the same exact code base in your repository, in your username. So anyways, if you've already started, keep going. If you haven't, you can fork it. So it'll keep it'll create two variables. Now you have
Yeah, that's about it. Because that's so you got your repo, the unzip local repo.
Once everybody gets it set up,
Okay, you're now getting
once you get your collaborators working, and let me know, and we'll talk about next steps.
Yes, I am able to generate a massive amount, and then I opened it as a blog, so then I'm getting.
So now, I think what happened.
So now we can ask my
What's that?
The parent folder, which is the rails.
Then you add migrate.
That's the repo, which it's not going to use as
And
much.
then you have then you get clone.
And then
And then you'll see collaborators left hand side at the top here. So you have Can you add collaborator? Yeah. I think like right here.
You're right.
right.
How are you guys doing?
If you got it.
Okay, so you both clone down the code your computer. You do
So
that.
you first have to tell it which new repo, the one that Scott has created, to link to. Because right now it doesn't know which one online.
To get the code on your machine, you're going to clone it down. Once you've set up the repository and added collaborators.
He forked it.
Oh no! I only want the team leader to do that. And then you. It's okay.
So first you got to use user.
Go ahead.
When you do the get from us admins. Okay. Well, you don't pull because you got all the files in zip. So you're going to push that for the first time. Unless you actually, you're right. You should pull for the Well, if you didn't create a README file and it was completely empty, you could push without problem. If the README file was sitting there, then you would have had it pulled. So to be safe, well, because you do need to. Yeah, you're right.
But I want to make sure that I've got it. It's just a process of getting it all done first.
It's like a best practice thing. Always pull first to make sure that you got it. Okay, so what was the? Okay, so is there a reason? Is it?
So you get
Let's
the
just refresh the replay because sometimes it defaults. Like if it's checked on that, you might not consciously know that. I think that's it there. So there's a reason. And so you try to pull, and it's saying basically that
We don't need to, maybe.
yeah, it's saying that this reading is the last update, and you make changes before you pull it. I think
Since you know
you can read the reading here, or one thing you can also do.
So spouse,
So it says reading, so you can see it's like reading is the difference.
both have cloned it down to your local machine. Make sure it runs. Yep.
Working tree.
Would be the, that's one thing. So we don't care. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah, we know it's the only thing on the side. That's the way to do it. Yeah. Try that twice with the push. Yeah.
So when your team has the project downloaded and running, let me know. And everybody in your team has it running on their computer. You got it? Is it running? Yeah, we got it. Nice.
That's good.
Okay.
Now try to push.
So what
You may have to force it, but at least we got files to push now. We didn't know what we was committed for.
So instead of that default home page,
Do the force. Because
I want one of you to do it, and then I want to be able to see the same homepage without it. Don't type it. You have to, whoever does it, you got to commit it, push it, and then whoever does it, the other one has to be able to pull it down, and I want to see all that. Don't copy it, don't you?
Let's just do it. Get that and say stuff. All this one. Well, we got to add them first. That might have been something else. So just get it out of the space. Oh. Yeah. So grabbed all those files. Now I can. Yes. Okay. We're getting some now. Try to push.
All right, how we doing? You guys got the project running over here yet? Still working on that?
It's a charge button. Let's just push it before step.
How are y'all doing? What's what area?
What do you think is routing uninitialized
I think
content?
it's working.
So what, check your folder, all files.
Let me make sure. I wonder if I put some. Let's see. Let's take a look. You getting students control in initialized constant?
We rate
So let me open it up and see what might have happened.
It's just like it's really to delete it on the table. So it's really
All right, let me see if I get the same error. Okay, so I'm seeing it.
it might have been complicated. Maybe when we
So you're seeing uninitialized constant students controller.
But now it's there, so maybe you and I can pull it. Yeah, add us. We'll do it.
Is everybody able to run it? Anybody else able to run it?
In the meantime, we can pull.
Steven and Mike, you guys are able to run it over there?
Maybe you and I
Can you get to students? Yeah, let me look over your shoulder.
no, it's not there.
Well, we got resource teams.
Like when you
So let me see what you can use here.
The ISS collaborators.
Working on the
We can pull without being collaborators, we just can't push. So I'm running out all these ideas, and you can go ahead
So far,
from,
so wait,
no, I went to TTS. Yeah, I was the wrong one. Okay, so it's the same order.
So if you go,
So it's github.com, miscellaneous, SCA,
aha, okay. Here's what I did wrong. Nope. Who knows what I did wrong? It's on the board. I didn't add. I have a whole bunch of untracked files, including the database. So if you're seeing a problem, it's because I didn't add my files. So therefore,
we did.
yes. So yes, let's do it again.
Good practice.
Yep, exactly. So that's a good question. I don't fork repositories that much. So I don't know if there's a refork or I think you'll have to start over. So you're going to delete your repository. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to start over. We're going to delete the repository. So delete the repository and then refork.
Yeah.
Well, you also start over. You'll need to refork.
So he just added something.
You're going to delete. Everybody delete it. So delete. So team lead delete the repository. This is good practice. Believe it or not, this is very good practice. So team lead's going to delete the repository, and then everybody's going to delete the code base from their local computer, and then the team lead's going to do it all over again and reclone. Cool. All right. So do me a favor. Do you see the repository?
Okay, so
Are you showing it?
yeah, we did the other way, but he said we could fork. We can try it out.
Yeah, fork. You can fork them. I actually like the fork editing better. I don't fork repositories much, so I forgot about it. Standpoint of it. So fork, and then that'll just create it in yours, and then you can.
Oh, then we can fork.
And then you can add collaborators, and then everybody has to clone the repository.
So you delete it, and then this is the new version.
What's that?
what you want us to do?
Oh, so you deleted the repository, so delete the code base from your machines, and delete the repository. Fork the repository again. So all over again. And then it's a good practice. And then get the rails running and make sure you send it to the students and teams. You're done.
You guys are there.
Did you push it back up again? Hold on one second. I'm double checking that.
Let's skip that whole thing. So now it's there. Maybe not. So maybe you and I should delete the whole directory. So there's no, because you already.
That's what I'm saying. Delete what's your house.
Yeah, it should be good. Give it a shot.
The folder that was created last
Is it working out?
and then finally we put it on after deleting the folder. The last one we got, we gotta get rid of it. And I wish I remember. Oh, you did desktop. Sorry. Yeah, I said desktop. What you want to do is that. Grab that. Get that command line. Yeah, because we're gonna replace it with this one.
But it's
And even though it's the same name, the one that Scott just set up it's a different one.
I never saw that.
Okay, because it still is on your computer. That's what we all need to do before we clone it. Is go here to team generator and just delete it. What thanks to
There you go.
Yeah, I never found it.
okay, so you probably
So I have to get.
Oh, we didn't read guys.
She just sent it to me, so I'm gonna-
Okay, cool. One thing you'll have to do that I didn't mention is once you get it recloned, you'll have to break to create the database. So the database doesn't get stored in Git. So you have to break and create the database locally. First time, yeah. And actually, whenever so if you make schema changes, commit those. The migrations is your schema will be pushed, but then Tammy will have to break to get those committed to her local version.
well, you don't have to.
Yeah. Every time you make a schema change, and you'll be like, hey, FYI, the change I just pushed out, you'll want to break.
Well, you won't need to do an add origin because that's already.
Oh, okay.
When you clone it, that add origin part is taken care of. It's not necessary to clone it. It's only necessary. Yeah, and it should work provided it's missing, but it thinks that.
All right, so you're able to do that. You're able to do this. If you get the thing up and running on your local computer, step one, I want one of your team members to set a new homepage. Remember how we did that? We set a brand new homepage. Right now, the homepage is the default Ruby on Rails, so somebody gets that honor. So remember, y'all figure it out amongst yourselves, and then commit, push the change, and your teammate should be able to pull that change down.
Why you laughing? Like I can't.
We should have been. Carrots.
This is a good clone and then the address.
So, yeah, so we could go controller, or you could just see.
You know what?
Are we creating a web page?
Let's go over and bring out the folder. Or maybe you can put it
Are
inside.
we just browsing it, or you want
I'm thinking an issue.
Create a welcome page. Yep. Create a welcome page.
So we go to
And that could be welcome page, do whatever the hell you want.
Maybe create a
Create-
folder. It's called
just create an index?
then create an index. Recommend, space, and then you can start. Okay, so you don't have to do PWD, make sure that it's split.
Nitty, are you in charge of creating the homepage?
Yeah, let's get out of that. You have a folder, it's recognized as to the generator, so you can't make a new one since it's there.
I'll give you guys a quick tip on for those of you who are at the creating the homepage step. So you can create a new controller, call it welcome, maybe give it a couple of actions. It might be index and about and contact, whatever they might be. Only tip I'm giving you. But anyway.
I gotta rate it myself.
Yeah.
But when you did PWD, it recognizes to the generator. So even though we can't find it in your file, which you no, no, inside, so I mean, that way. But I mean, it was thinking that it was there. I was thinking that-
Yeah, so what you want to do is you want to so look at generating controller, and when you generate that controller, you can pass through a couple of different actions.
So now,
And then those actions correspond to
Yeah.
So look at creating a new controller, generating a new controller.
now
Maybe.
where you are. So now, TJX. So we have that.
Okay.
Let's say we created a controller.
Right.
And read them as well.
Yeah, if you, I haven't watched myself yet, but if you did,
So for adding an action, I've got you. I haven't found one. And most everybody, every Stack Overflow article I read was like, just launch stop. It literally was like, stop being lazy. It's all you do is add the action in the controller and then add a course.
so you and I are the same place.
That's all you do. So you go and delete it.
Right.
No, you don't delete it. You go in like if you run the generator to create a control, all and then you pass into it in the next.
So you just go in and just create.
Yeah, and if you want to add another action, then it's literally as simple as going into the controller and adding a new action and adding a new view. So what I Googled to find out was adding a new view to an existing controller, and all the articles were like, oh, there's really no command to do that, but it's as simple as adding an action in the controller and adding a view. Hey.
So for generate, if you want to
expand the home page.
Now, control.
Okay, so maybe he's on the front end, they only work.
So
And I mean, we're trying to build that whole.
Hey guys, real quick. So hold on 2 seconds. So we've got 5 minutes left. So here's the deal, right? We're kind of getting to the point where we're going to be doing these kinds of exercises a lot in class, where we're going to give you kind of a random assignment and you're going to work in a team, and that team will be different maybe once a week, every day, just depends. But I'm going to start juggling people up, which is why we're creating this app right here. Because we're going to create this app and we're going to use it to create random teams. Every day, every week, whatever. So here's the challenge. I want to see if any team can get this working by tomorrow's class. And so this, I mean, you've got about 22 hours. And this is a very common thing in the developer world. Somebody comes to you with a crazy idea that you have no idea what they're talking about and says, I want you to get this thing working by tomorrow. So you have each other's emails. You have my email. You have each other's phone numbers, presumably, Skype. Stay here. Go park yourself at Octane Coffee, whatever you got to do. But I want to see if somebody can get this thing working. If you can get it working, I want it to look cool. If you can make it look cool, add some new features. Get creative. But the first task is to try to get it as close to working as possible. Again, there are many solutions to this, right? Many. And what I'm going to work on, because I'm on a team, I'm on an island by myself. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to create my own solution. And I'm going to post it up to GitHub tomorrow. So you won't be able to see it till tomorrow. And if you get stuck, no worries, because there are some complicated pieces to this. And I fully understand that many of you are not going to know how to solve this problem, and that is totally okay. So don't feel like a failure if you don't figure it out. No worries. But we got to start challenging you guys with real-world projects now. Cool? All right, guys. I'll see you. I'll be here for another hour or so.
Well, here is my I'm leaving here
You manage your project.
I'll look at this.
We'll work in the trenches. You want to be the manager? Yeah, well, that's what I'll be working on this.
Let's figure out.
Yeah.
So at this point, FYI, there's no more. You don't clone anymore, right? No more cloning. It's only pulling and pushing and committing.
I think, and that's also my idea, we should put it down a little bit. I think we should get it a lot. We should get caught up as a front end, final work. We have some time about this.
Yo.
Mention that, yeah. So we're thinking a little bit. I was thinking strictly on Ruby.
Not IRB.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking Mixed
grade.
No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah, so I'm not
It's
gonna be very visible,
It does
honestly.
not sound.
So
Oh, right.
that Odette is
Right,
basically,
right.
I mean, it has
So,
a-
Yes.
well, I guess what I mean is, we not
So,
to ignore the
Odette,
front,
you're on team
But,
Steven and Mike.
Okay.
you know,
Yes.
we should keep as bare bones as possible
So,
until we get the
so Odette is
function
going to be on
to
y'all's
work
team.
out. And then, you know,
Okay. This
decide
is
to
what Tom's going to
that's what I think.
Are we ready?
Yeah. You still have any problems?
Yeah, so, I mean, what are your
Okay,
thoughts?
so let's-
Like, we've actually
Let's
talked
go.
about
Let's
this
go
a
to
bit,
the office and
so
figure it out.
where are you
Okay.
coming from?
So, guys, it's 11 o'clock, and since our favorite folks next door really don't like us, we need to vacate.
Okay.
Try to keep it down if you can. If they give you any problems, let me know. Or Richard know. Cool?
Let's talk about